Welcome back to the Law of Relevancy podcast. Today, I'm super excited to have Ed Ellsasser on the show. Ed is the CEO and founder of Prime Group Insurance, and he's also this year's chair for the CEO Council of Tampa Bay. Ed, thank you for joining us on the show.
I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I think that you're probably my first guest from Mishawaka, Indiana.
Well, it's not a big town. It's in northern Indiana, right near South Bend, and
South Bend.
South Bend. Yeah. So I grew up a Notre Dame fan, but a little too close to home. So I went to Indiana University. But we have one of the most unique mascots in the country, the Mishawaka Cavemen. So that was my high school mascot.
Wow. So are there any other cavemen mascots in America?
I don't think so. I think the closest, my friend was from New York, Fredonia. They were the Fredonia Hillbillies. So I think those are two of the top mascots in the country.
Those have to be. Is there like one of those plush outfits that somebody wears?
Well, yeah, it was like a caveman type outfit. He carried a club around and all that. So.
Just like a skinned saber-toothed tiger?
Yeah, like that, yeah. It was a good look.
That's good. Well, I think they're probably safe from the caveman lobby.
Yeah.
They're probably going to be safe with that mascot for a while.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, so Ed, you have somewhat locally famously built a business around serving other businesses, right? It seems like your entire career here in the Tampa Bay area, you've been really good at that, and you've been really good at building relationships with those business owners and really doing that quickly. Mm-hmm. How do you think you're getting that done so successfully?
I guess I always go into a relationship looking at how I can help the other person.
Yeah.
And then I know at some point they'll look to return that favor if I can help them. So when I'm maybe calling on a new business, I'm thinking about who can I connect them to or plug them into so that their business can continue to grow.
I love that idea. Yeah. I feel like I do a lot of that myself. And what's cool about it is it actually brings you a lot of joy because like you're actually helping other people, even though you're receiving nothing for it. And ultimately they might look for ways that they can help you back. And it just seems to work out. Yeah,
I agree.
Well, one of the things you've talked about is hiring for the culture first. What does that mean? What does that mean?
So, everybody can put something snazzy on a resume and everybody can talk a good talk, but what I'm looking for, we've been looking for the last several years is are people that care about the community and care about giving back. As part of our core values is our community, our clients, and then our employees at Prime Group Insurance. And we know if we need to take care of our clients first, that's the most important thing. If it weren't for them, we wouldn't be in business. So when we interview and are talking to new candidates, we talk about that a lot. The fact that it's not 9 to 5, it's 9 till the job gets done for our clients. It's not follow up. But
how does that go over with the new Gen Zers?
Everybody seems to give them a bad rap, but I'm not seeing it. I call them the kids. I've hired a lot of kids lately, and I mean I push them and make sure that I let them know in the process about our culture that if you're looking to sprint out of here at 5:01, then this isn't the place for you. So I don't personally have the issue.
They probably appreciate it. You're being upfront and honest with them.
Yeah,
and probably helping them be more successful later on.
I mean, I feel like that's the case. I mean, we have quite a few kids right now. We did some acquisitions 6-7 years ago, and I was investing in that and not investing in young talent. And that caught up with me a little bit. So 5 or 6 years ago, we started really investing in young people again. And now it's really got our business cranking.
And so the questions you ask during an interview are what?
I'm trying to dig into, what charities or what nonprofits are you focused on? What are you doing to give back? And, digging into that, I'm focused on, trying to dial into, do they care about other people? Do they care about, ultimately, would they care about our clients? And I talk a lot about closing the loop. And, in any business, you're going to have issues come up. Your clients are going to have issues. It might be a billing issue. It might be a certificate of insurance in our business that needs to get handled or didn't get handled timely, didn't have the right verbiage on it. Yeah. So issues will come up, but if you don't handle that issue, and I say close the loop on that issue, then they become problems, and that's when you lose clients. And the reason that we've been able to grow over 20 plus years now is, that we retain, 90+% of our clients. And that's because we value the relationship and we want to put them first and make sure that we close the loop on issues that come up, because clients are understanding and know nobody's perfect. We're going to have some things come up, but what they're looking for is somebody that's going to get it resolved.
That makes sense. Makes sense. It's funny how that works.
Yeah.
People, you take care of them and it means a lot to them. It
does. And obviously, any business that does a good job is going to get referrals then. And that's the Willy Wonka golden ticket.
Yeah.
Is a client referral. So
you mentioned 20 years. You've been an entrepreneur for a long time.
Are you saying I'm old?
I'm saying you're not old. Like, relatively speaking, it's a long time for you're not that old, right?
I'm feeling old. You saw me hobbling up the stairs today. So.
That's just the Ed Ellsasser.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Usually there's a few beers involved when I have the Ellsasser. That's
right. So you were drawn to entrepreneurship early on.
I guess, I tried out the corporate deal, I did the Fortune 500 company and all that. And it just, while I got some good training and background, it just wasn't, fast enough for me. I knew I'd have to put in 10 or 15 or 20 years to get to where I wanted to be. And while I learned a lot, I just always have had the urge to lead. And so it's been 20 plus years.
Yeah. So. And you had a lot of success, relatively speaking. You've already exited one business.
Correct. Yeah. So we, in 97 got involved with a payroll business, and, we built that from a couple offices in Florida to 13 offices throughout the Southeast, and Florida, Georgia, over to Texas. And while I was doing that, also was building the insurance agency. And, we combined some different regions of that payroll company, PrimePay, and we had to exit a few years ago. And then, so the last 5 or 6 years now, I've just really been focused on growing the agency and developing those young people that I was mentioning to you.
So you mentioned that you wanted to get where you wanted to be, right? So where is that? Where do you want to be? What is it about entrepreneurship that really floats your boat?
I tell people when I grow up, or when I have the next exit, more than likely, that I want to be Tim Marks, going and running Metropolitan Ministries or something like that. So trying to go work in some kind of nonprofit space where I can continue to give back and help the community. But it's funny you mentioned that, because I had a discussion with a group of business owners relatively recently, and we were all kind of talking about, hey, where are you at as far as retirement? What are your thoughts? What are you thinking? And we kind of went around the room, and for me, I'd always had in my head a certain dollar amount. If I had X dollars in the bank, I'm ready to go, or a certain age, that's when I would shut it down. But as I went around the room, and a few of these people in the room had already had some nice exits, and they talked about how they needed to stay involved, and with maybe it's not in the day-to-day grind of a business, but stay involved with keeping the mind sharp and
well, that makes sense. So, you've got the skills that you acquire and refine as an entrepreneur. Those are pretty important talents, right?
Yeah.
And if you can bring those to bear for an important cause,
Right.
you could probably do some good.
Yeah, for sure. So that conversation kind of changed my mindset a little bit into thinking, or my thinking of, it doesn't have to be a dollar amount or an age. It can, I want to stay involved with some kind of business. Even if I tell people my son has a landscaping business, I tell people I'm going to go cut grass for him when I decide to shut it down so I can hang out with him. He's so busy. It seems like the only time I can catch some time with him is helping him work on the weekends at the job site. And that's probably part of the reason I was hobbling up the stairs today.
That's keeping you in shape, though.
Yeah, right.
It reminds me of the story of the Tijuana Flats guy.
Okay.
He quit his job. The son started the restaurant. It was doing so well. Pops was some executive, and he quit his job and jumped down and helped his son build a Tijuana Flats empire.
Oh, wow. That's great. I didn't know that.
So, I think that there's a lot of opportunity in businesses like landscaping, like home services.
Mm-hmm.
If you're very good at it, if you're a good operator, you can grow a very large, successful business that way.
Yeah, that's what I've been trying to help the young lad with.
That's good, and he's doing really well.
Yeah.
So he's a young dude, right? He's in his 20s.
Yeah, he just turned 21.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness! And so he is just crushing it right now.
Yeah, he's got over 100 accounts now in South Tampa, and he's doing.
That's a good neighborhood to have a landscaping business.
Yeah. Most everyone pays the bills, right?
That's great. Good for him.
Yeah,
And I'm sure he's inspired by what you've done in the years past.
I hope so. I don't know. Your kids aren't I guess going to pat you on the back like that, but I've had buddies that have mentored him that didn't go to college and that have very, very successful businesses. So it's good to hear it from somebody else than your dad.
Right.
But I think now that he's getting a little bit older, he's starting to realize that they're telling him kind of the same thing I am, just a little bit differently. And so, we're meeting regularly now to just talk businesses before he, makes some kind of maybe an equipment purchase or a hire or things like that. Just being able to kind of talk through it.
Mentor him a little bit.
Yes,
And
sir.
mentors have been pretty important to you in the past, haven't they?
It has, yeah. I've had some great mentors over the years. I still do, people that I lean on, both in my industry and outside my industry. It's always good to have, in my opinion, somebody within your industry that you can bounce ideas off of and just get their feedback. I say a lot, kids again that I'm mentoring or business owners that I'm mentoring. I want to help you get from A to Z quicker. I want you to learn from my mistakes, and from my successes, so that I can, help you get to where you want to be. So, mentoring is important to me to have them, and then also now that I'm old, as you so kindly stated.
I said you're not old.
Okay, I'm trying to pay it back or pay it forward. How do they say that? What's that term? Pay it forward?
Pay it forward.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. So that I can, help other people.
And then of your other son, you just dropped him off
I did.
at school.
Yeah.
So now you're official empty nester.
I am. I'm just dropped him off in Tallahassee, I guess about a month ago. So kind of excited because this weekend's parents' weekend. So I get to see him for first time in 5 weeks. So I'm getting a little emotional thinking about seeing my son now. Hey, that's weird.
That's awesome.
Wow. Anyway, but he seems to be off to a good start. He's having fun but yeah, that's a new deal, the old empty nesting thing. So
Yeah, and there's so many different paths you can take nowadays. I tell my son, it's like, dude, you don't even have to go to college these days. Every class that you would take in college is available for free online, probably better, in a lot of ways. There are YouTube videos, there's apps like Coursera, there's, lynda.com. There's about 6 or 7 different really popular online training platforms for like $15 a month. You can basically get like a master's degree in business or something.
yeah.
And I know, and even in my business, like we hire for like the skill and the culture fit. It's I don't care where you acquire this skill.
Yeah, I agree with you. Back in the day, when I started in business, I mean, that was always one of the requirements. You need to have a 4-year degree. But today, again, as we'd already talked about, I'm hiring on culture fit and
So you're saying anyone can do insurance?
anyone can do insurance. Anyone can do it. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, sir.
That's good. I'm just teasing insurance
know.
people. I love insurance. I have lots of it.
Yeah.
So as you've kind of gone through and you've picked, like, what are those pillars you want to build your business around? It's the 3 main pillars that you have.
Yeah. So the community, or clients, employees. I mean, you got to take care of your employees. So I feel like my first employee, 23 years, is still with me. That came on to help me start the business. Now I lose track, but we're pushing 40 employees now.
Wow.
And a lot of my team have been with me, 10 plus years. Other than the kids I've been hiring the last few years, and some of the new positions we've had. So, I feel like, we pay them a competitive salary. We've got great benefits. I feel like since we're an insurance agency, we need to pay for their health insurance.
Right.
Pay. So they've got, the
that
health,
wholesale,
the health, dental, vision, all that, 401k match, all that fun stuff. We have a very generous PTO program. We give paid time off to volunteer in the community. Kind of ties back to our core values. And then we also, cordial like this, we have a Founders Day that everyone gets to select a day off. They can either take the day after St. Patrick's Day off or Good Friday. So you get your option there. So,
why is it called Founders Day?
well, it's because I came up with the idea.
Oh, it's your idea. I got you. It sounds so good.
Yes. So
maybe they'll make a tiny little statue in the office
right?
of you.
Yeah, exactly. So
Tiny little concrete bottle.
Several years ago, we had a whole crew out. We happened to have a company event on St. Patrick's Day, and everybody got a little aggressive with the green beers, and so nobody showed up the next day. So I was like, all right, we got a new holiday. So
it's post Founders Day.
Yeah, exactly. And there was a few, there were a few non-drinkers in the crew, so we gave them the option to take Good Friday off if they wanted. So
there you go.
Yeah.
I've heard one of my favorite sayings about that kind of an atmosphere at work is I was talking to this guy who worked at Miller Brewing, and every year they had an annual conference in Las Vegas. And he said to his team, every time before, the whole team would go out there, right? And he would say, team, I've done this many times. There's going to be a lot of drinking in meetings. There's going to be drinking all day long, sampling product, et cetera, right? So I've seen a lot of people fired out there during this event, but I've never seen anyone promoted. So
yeah.
So just be careful.
Yeah, right.
So anyhow, it is fun though. It is good to be able to have fun with your teammates.
For sure. Yeah, we recently loaded up a party bus and went to an afternoon Rays game, which everybody had a blast, and we volunteer as a team, quarterly. COVID put a little damper on that, but just with these young kids, as I call them, some of them haven't been exposed to a lot of the different nonprofits around Tampa Bay, so we're trying to help with that, and when I'm talking to younger people that are looking to give back, I talk about find something that they're passionate about, and that's there's so many great nonprofits out there, and we kind of dove into kids and military to
I'm exactly the same.
Have our focus. So,
those are my favorite two genres as well.
So that's where we try to invest our time and our dollars. But I'm all about cutting the checks and things like that. But I'm really looking for places where we can go and roll our sleeves up and like we'll volunteer like Hillsborough Education Foundation, and they've got that teachers tools school where teachers can come in and get supplies for their classrooms, and we're sitting around a bunch of tables and we're packing paper clips, or we're sorting pens, or taking 25 crayons and putting them in boxes of 10 or whatever they need help with, inventory and stuff like that. So Metropolitan Ministries is always fun to go volunteer. We try to do that around the holidays, the toy, when the families are picking
food
up
drives
the food.
and toy drives in the holidays.
All that. Yeah.
And so you personally like the children's and the military nonprofits. And like I said, I feel the same way. In the past, you've been involved. When I look at your bio of all the different nonprofits and organizations you've been a part of, it's quite extensive. Like, how have you picked those groups over the years? Yeah.
So what I try to dig into, obviously the core mission of the nonprofit has to align with what I'm all about, and then try to dig in and make sure that it's being run correctly, that the dollars raised are going towards the mission and things like that. So I always recommend, pick a, is it animals, is it fighting cancer, or again, kids, or whatever it might be, whatever you're passionate about, and then find the organizations in the area that are focused on that, and then go spend some time there. Sit down with their executive director or their staff and learn more about what they do, and do a little research online, and see see what their impact is, and see if there's someone you want to align with, and see what volunteer opportunities they have. What are they looking for? What do they need help with? Is
the volunteer opportunities, like what can I do to roll up my sleeves to get involved?
Right.
Do you ever recommend? I know you've served on a lot of boards. Do you ever recommend trying to get on the boards of those nonprofits, or is it just good enough to volunteer?
That's up to the individual. One of my guys, Brett Scafidi, he's been with me about 5 years now. He just got JA has put together, Junior Achievement has put together like a young executives board. So that's a good spot for him to dial into and to start getting involved and giving back. Same young lad. He's chairing this next year, the Emerging Leaders of Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
And it's it's a program for 21 to 35-year-olds, and I get all of my young people involved with that. And the main reason I do is because they have a great mentor program.
Yeah.
So they'll pair up an old guy like me with a young up-and-coming business person, and they've got a really good curriculum that they put together, like an 8-month program, where this month you're talking about nonprofits, for example. The next month you're talking about goal setting. You're talking about your personal brand, marketing. So each month you have a particular topic, and you sit down with your mentee and go through that. And one thing that I like about it, which I think is important in the mentor-mentee relationship, is that the mentee drives the relationship. Hey, our monthly meeting's coming up. What days are you available? We meet. They come prepared.
Right.
So that, because as a lot of mentors typically have a lot on their plate. So I'm running and gunning every day.
Right.
So if I'm going to give an hour or 2 hours or whatever of my time, I want to make sure that it's valuable to the person I'm sitting down with, and that they come prepared and they want to learn. I think it's been about 5 or 6 years now I've been involved with this Emerging Leaders program, and a few of my mentees ended up ghosting me after a few months, and I'm like, hey, I'd rather have it that way than I'd rather them flame out early than just kind of half-ass it through the program. So,
right.
But then there's others that I've met with. Actually, it's funny.
It seems like I just want to. If I had you as a mentor with all of your connections around town, that would be such a dumb mistake. As a young person, they must.
Yeah, I mean, some kids are still trying to figure it out,
Yeah.
But it's funny you mentioned. I just was thinking about my day, and young gentleman I met started mentoring. I think it's about 4 years ago. I'm actually meeting him tonight for a cold beverage, and because
Sure.
we don't meet as frequently as we did through the program, but we meet about quarterly or so. And just to kind of catch up, and he can still bounce ideas off me and things like that. There's been a few emergency calls over the years where he's thinking about making a career change or some bigger life decisions where we'll have the one-off meetings. But one thing I've started doing too with this crew from emerging leaders and other people that I'm mentoring, including some on my team, is I started getting them together as a group.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's been good. It's been great. And they and now they are starting to develop relationships with each other and work together to help grow each other's businesses. So that's really what it's all about.
No doubt about it. I remember about 15 years ago, before it was called Emerging Leaders, it was called Emerge. And I did a year through the program, and it really helped me because I was working in a business on one side of town, and I lived on that side of town. I really didn't have a lot of contact with downtown Tampa or some of the other businesses that were making headlines or, bringing some of the best talent to town. And so by getting involved in that program back then, I was able to instantly get connected to other leaders within the community that were my age, and all of them now are either entrepreneurs, they're, executives. It is really cool how certain people with certain skills and initiative, because really what you're talking about when you're saying, hey, it is their responsibility to bring their preparation, make sure that we're scheduling, because I've got a million things going on, but that by itself is one incredible skill to have as a young person coming along, just that initiative.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I'll get emails out of the blue from people with their resumes, and they'll be following up on something and trying to make a good impression or write a handwritten letter. I'll immediately tell my team, it's like, hey, interview this person. We need bench strength. And because that to me is a culture fit, because I don't want people that are sitting around waiting to hear back.
Right. Yeah.
It's like,
cross their fingers.
Go get it.
Yeah.
Just go
Couple
get
Hail
it.
Marys.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I agree with you.
I didn't realize you went through that program. That's cool.
It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I think I was as old as you could be the first year I did it, and it really helped me connect with some others who
those leadership programs I think are great and beneficial. I've been through Leadership Tampa Bay, and now I've had a couple of my team members go through after me, and so.
How important are those leadership programs where you're an established professional? I know that there's 3 major ones, but Leadership Tampa.
Yeah, so Leadership Tampa's through the chamber. I did the Leadership Tampa Bay.
And then
it's more regionally focused.
Tampa Bay Connection.
Yeah,
I think is another one.
Yeah, I believe that's for the younger business leaders as well, but not positive on that one. But for me, it was a commitment because you're spending a couple of days a month.
That's a big commitment.
Outside of your business but out of 60 people in the class I went through in 2014, and I still have several great friendships out of that. Gotten business out of it. Not that that's the main purpose of it, but that's again, as we talked about when we started, that's a byproduct of people like doing business with people they like.
So for people who don't know about those programs, how do you get in one?
So there's an application process involved, and they typically programs are starting like right now. They start in August, September timeframe, and they run through June. So
like a school year.
Exactly. And so the application process will start after the first of the year. So if somebody's interested in doing that, then they can go out to, Leadership Tampa Bay, Tampa Connection, and find out, when the applications are due and so forth. And they typically will have events where you can come out and learn more about the program. So I'd recommend that somebody interested in doing that to get out to a few of the informational events.
Sometimes there's a fee to be involved as well.
There is a fee. It's not expensive, but
if you're young,
it's not cheap. But
you can get your business a lot of times if you bring that to leadership at the company you work for. Sometimes they'll sponsor you, right?
Yeah. So like I sponsor the people that from my organization that went through the program. So it's an investment. It's an investment in those individuals, and the programs run $3,000 to $4,000. It's what typically. I'm not sure the exact pricing these days, but in that range. So it's enough of a fee to where you feel it, but it's sort of like when you pay for something, you take it more seriously. You show up. Correct.
You're not going to be playing hooky on those days. That was an $800 day you just missed.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So that's before I put somebody through, I'm not going to put somebody through that's only been with me a year, or even 2 years. I want to make sure that it's somebody that's committed to Prime Group and committed to the community, to be honest with you.
So they kind of once they've established themselves in your organization as somebody who's going to stick.
Yeah, and somebody that is not only going to stick, but it's going to take on a leadership role.
Got you. Yeah.
So
that's really cool. Well, let's talk about leadership for a second. So you've been a natural leader. I mean, you are taking on roles within the community that require a lot of attention. There's a lot of responsibility with what you have. Like, what is your leadership style?
I'll show this to my team a few times. I think I got a picture here. I'll show you this real quick. Here we go. So there's the leader that has the big megaphone, like the Nick Saban of the world, and then there's the leader like this fish over here that's leading the pack, and that's my leadership style right there. I'm the fish because I'm not gonna yell and scream. I'm not a micromanager. I'm gonna lead by example. If I want somebody out rolling their sleeves up in the community, I'm going to be out there rolling my sleeves up in the community. If I'm, want somebody to sell a certain amount for for our producers, then I'm going to do that or more. And if I'm going to tell somebody, I don't want you going home at 5:01, I'm not going to be going home at 5:01. I'm not saying, that everybody has to stay till it's dark out and things like that. But again, it's staying till the client's taken care of. And especially, you talked about the younger people. I continually push them to treat it like it's their own business. And the harder you work, the more money you can make. Yeah. And don't treat it like a job. And
that is one of the good things about insurance is you have a book of business.
Right. Exactly.
And it directly impacts your pay.
Yeah, 100%. And you can go out and give yourself a raise every day. So, but if you're sprinting out of here, if you're rolling in, at whatever time and leaving early, then, I use
you're making it harder to hit your goals.
Yeah. Right. I talk about this a lot, Cords, is that, back in the day when I first started selling and everybody's like, oh, how come you're selling more than everybody else? And I said, well, one, I know my product and I know my competition, but I'm going to outwork the guy next to me. If the guy next to me is, he's rolling in at 9 and going home and watching Oprah or whoever
Big
the
Bang
show,
Theory.
whoever the show is now at 4, that's 2 hours a day. If I'm 8 to 5, and I'm more than that, but if I'm working 8 to 5, then I'm going to outwork the next guy. So then I multiply it out for people. That's 10 hours a week times 52 weeks. That's 520 hours a year divided by 8. That's 65 more days a year that I'm working than the guy next to me.
It's easy math.
That's pretty easy math. Yeah. I think, if you're in a sales role or in any role, if you're working 65 more days than someone else, you're going to be more productive.
I think you hit on something earlier about sales. And it's sort of like when you think of a salesperson, like the typical salesperson, a lot of times, like I think of the person who's maybe 7-8 years ago was pushing cell phones in the kiosk at the mall when you walk down, and they're like shouting at you, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be that way at all.
Right.
Like for me, it gets really easy to call people back and to check in on them. It's like, hey, did you get that proposal? And close deals. When you think about helping, like this service that I have, like this insurance, this policy, this whatever, you have to have this in place.
Right.
Right. And so when you're reaching out or following up or whatever, you're actually just trying to help.
Yeah. I mean, that's one thing that I like about this industry is that fact exactly. Because in my previous world, when I was, cutting my teeth in sales, we had sales quotas and that we had to hit and so forth, like any business. But, sometimes I'd go in and sell somebody the G-Wagon when maybe they really needed a Honda. And
Right.
I didn't always feel right about that, that I wasn't really taking care of them. So,
Well, you're creating future problems, to be honest with you, because it's like they're not going to be able to afford the G-Wagon,
right?
And so if they don't get the thing that meets their needs, then you're just creating more problems for them, and then you're preventing yourself from any referrals
100%. Yep.
that they may give you.
Yep. So,
what do you do when somebody's maybe falling outside of that school of fish? Like, have you ever had to like try to bring somebody back?
Yeah. So, I talk a lot about hire slow. Make sure they're a good fit for our culture and they're going to fit in. But then fire fast. So we'll give them every opportunity to succeed. And if they fit in our culture, then we're going to find a spot for them. They might not be in the right seat where they're at. If it's a sales position and they're not consistently, hitting their sales goal and growing their book of business, and they fit in our culture with our team, then we'll move them to a different position where we'll try to help them be successful there.
Right.
There's some, you can't bat 1,000. There's always going to be some people that I usually say they don't have the capacity to do the job. They may fit in our culture, but they don't have the capacity where they can be successful in the role that they've had or that we've put them in. Then, it's time to move on. And usually they self-select themselves out because they realize that, particularly, as we built, matrix and scorecards and measurables, then, they typically will fall below the line. And once you start having those conversations and pushing people, they find another job typically.
And you actually have scorecards. Like
Right.
You have talked to me about it in the past. You love the business operating system, EOS. It's really helped your business a lot.
It has. Yeah. So, when you're growing, when you're growing a business, you're wearing 10 different hats. It's not as important to have as much structure around it. But when you're trying to scale and grow, if you want to do it as quick as possible, then you need to get some of that structure in place. And that EOS system helped us give us that structure. I know there's others out there that are very good, but that one, I had 2 guys the same week give me the same book traction. I'm like, all right, I better read this thing. And then some light bulbs started going off, and we've been in, I think we're about 5 years, we're over in year 5 right now of EOS. And it's really, it took us a couple years to kind of get the structure in place. And now instead of worrying, is everybody on the same page, we can worry about trying to grow the business.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you can kind of refer back to your scorecards and your KPIs, and everybody gets it.
Yeah. There's a picture in the front of what the heck is EOS, and it's a circle. It's got arrows going every which way. And that's when we got started, that's what we were like. Our org chart was a mess, and and then you flip the page and then there's a circle and all the arrows are going the same way. And that's, we might have an arrow or two going this way, but for the most part, most of the arrows are moving in the same direction now. And it just, it helps when everybody's on the same page. Everybody knows what our company goals are and where we want to get to. And we update them frequently on that. So they're in the loop on all that. And then they feel like they're a part of that.
That's huge to have that kind of involvement and that sort of teamwork mentality. Your team has been helping a local elementary school a lot lately. What are you doing at that school, and how did you get involved?
So you're talking about West Tampa Elementary. It's a Title I school. All the kids are below the poverty line, and friend of mine, Brian Butler, Vistor Communications. He came up with this amazing idea. He was working with a local elementary school and Mort Elementary, and he was spending time in the schools and realized all the challenges that these all the elementary schools, but particularly the Title I elementary schools, are having. So he created this program called CEOs in Schools, and it's a 1 day of change where you spend every elementary school in Hillsborough County has a business leader that spends a day in the school. As part of that, 3 years ago, I sat down with Kevin Kastner. He's the principal at West Tampa Elementary, and just started to get to know him and learn more about the school, and got to spend time with him and the teachers and realize just how much they cared. I'm sitting in a crammed little conference room with 5 of the 4th grade teachers, and they've got each kid like up on the board, and they're going, okay, we need to pair this kid with this kid and get them help with math or English and things like that. So I just, I could see that piece of it. And so I sat down with Kevin and that first year and said, hey, what do you need help with? What are some things that you can use some help with? And so he listed out 3 things. So I want to do a teacher appreciation Christmas lunch. I said, well, that one's easy. Brought in catering by the family. One of my clients, Steve Gonzalez, give him a little plug. Sure. And, brought in my team and we fed them a nice lunch. I got Steve Kona. He was on the school board at the time. He came out and thanked the teachers. Steve runs ABC, Association Builders and Contractors. So he came out and thanked the teachers. And so that one was easy. He wanted to get some art on campus. So there's a nonprofit in town called the Tampa Foundation, and Tim Moore leads that. And he brought out one of his muralists, and we found a great wall where they drop off the kids in the morning, and we raised money and got this awesome mural done to start, because the campus is real, I guess, drab or
a lot of rectangles.
Yeah, right. Yes. So, and then he wanted to get a PTA going. They didn't have a PTA, so the first PTA meeting we had was 2 of my employees, the principal, and a parent that happened to be walking by at the time. But then we started hosting donuts for dads and muffins for moms and T-shirt drives and things like that. And now we've got over 40 members of the PTA, and that's been
amazing.
It's been a huge help, because now they can help in some of the community cleanup or the campus cleanups that we're doing and painting projects and things like that.
That's got to feel great to see some of that perpetual motion. You know, it's like doesn't require you 100% of the time now to keep it going.
Correct. And now, like in July we had a painting day. Brought my team in. Also the members of the PTA. Principal Kastner was there. A few of the teachers, and we painted the library or resource center, as they call it now. We painted a bunch of they got these drab poles, and we painted them, cool colors, and then another group came in a few weeks and they did more painting, and so now we're starting to make some progress there. I brought in Doug Fisher with Work Labs, and last year we raised $13,000 for furniture in the resource center. They had uncomfortable stuff, kind of like this chair here, super uncomfortable. for your next group, can you get a little something a little bit more comfortable?
I like you to be on edge.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so so we brought in like adjustable furniture, so like the kindergartners aren't sitting at a table this big. I'm kind of short, so I know how they feel here. We brought in, they had like a rug, like a 3x3 rug for 20 kindergartners to read a book on. So we brought in new carpet and things like that. But Doug just donated 12 workstations for the teachers and students to the school, which they just were delivered. And so being able to get more people involved, that's been fun, because people naturally want to help. They just I guess need the outlet. So Doug happened to see, and I don't post on social media because I want a pat on the back. I post on LinkedIn and other social media because I want to get more people involved.
Inspire more
exactly.
people.
So people will come up to me and they'll be like, "Hey, you're doing great things in the community. You guys are doing great stuff, and we're not doing anything differently than we've ever been, but with technology and social media today, we just started posting about it a few years ago, and now people are starting to notice." But Doug reached out to me 4 or 5 months ago. "Hey, can we take you to lunch? I want to see what I can do to help out at West Tampa." So I bring him over, introduce him to Kevin, tours the campus, gets to spend some time in the classroom, see the kids, and like I said, now he just donated these workstations, which I was like blown away by. I think it was awesome. And I had a buddy, Gilly Dominguez. He have coffee at La Segunda. He's there a lot of mornings, and I was telling him about that we were trying to raise $13,000 for the resource center. This was last year. A week later, he calls me up and he says, "Hey, come by La Segunda." He goes, "I sent out an email to some of my network. I got a couple checks for you." So I'm thinking I'm going to pick up, $500 of checks or whatever. He gives me $3,500 worth of checks. I was having a beer with one of my clients and telling them what, about the school and what we were doing, and that we were trying to raise $13,000. He cuts me a check on the spot for $6,000 to the PTAs to pay for this. So people want to give. They just a lot of times, I don't know if it's that they don't know how, but it's kind of like circling back to sales. You just got to ask or put it out there. And I wasn't asking for money. I just was telling them what.
Well, I think people know
what
if they
we were
money
doing
to you and what you're doing, they see the evidence. They know it's going to be put to use in a very beneficial way, right?
Yeah. So, so the more people can see what we're doing. Jake Kurtz, Brick Media, he just got a mural done at a school that another Title I school. So we're actually Thursday having an unveiling. We got a second mural done by the resource center because we've been focused on that area. We did a landscaping cleanup this summer. I brought my son out. He brought out his Bobcat, and we cleared out this area and built this rock garden where the kids can put like rocks in and remulched and ripped out a bunch of dead stuff. And so we're trying to move our way through the school to kind of help clean up different areas. So
where can people, like what Doug did for you, where can people follow what you're up to and see what you're doing and the ways that you're getting involved in the community?
Prime on LinkedIn, you follow Prime Group and see a lot of the stuff that not only I'm doing but the rest of our team, and then obviously they can follow me as well. So
just find
me. You can see a lot of stuff. We'll put a lot of stuff out on our our website and so forth too, because it's what we're all about. And when we interview people, they see that, they see the stuff that we're doing in the community, and not everybody will talk about it, but quite a few will, and they'll bring it up to us, and that helps start the conversation going about what they do, or what they've been doing in the community and what charities they want to associate with. And I think I mentioned that we give PTO for them to, because I don't want to dictate where they spend their time or volunteer. I want that to be, as I said earlier, their passion.
Right.
Now, we do some things together, but for the individual, whether it be teaching a Sunday school class or volunteering at the Humane Society, I want them to follow their passion.
Absolutely. Well, Ed, thanks for coming in today. It's been a pleasure hearing about your passions and what you've been doing around town, and it's easy to see why you're a leader within the community.
Thank you, Cords. I appreciate the opportunity. I thought we had like 2 more hours. We're done already? Come on, man.
We're done already. Well, you can follow us anywhere where podcasts are found. You can follow us on the Bake More Pies website, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next time. Thanks for joining the Law of Relevancy podcast.